Hey, what's up, guys? It's Richard back here with another video on cosmic human design. And we're continuing our Hexagram series with Hexagram 3, making a new beginning. Con over chin, or um, water over thunder. The judgment, it furthers one to persevere in not undertaking anything until clarity is attained. It furthers one to appoint helpers. While hexagrams 1 and 2 describe the basic nature of the cosmos, the sage used this hexagram to define the human place in it. A person receives this hexagram at times when he is making a new beginning, whether it be in his relationship with himself or another, in his job, or in his learning a new lesson from the sage. The hexagram wants to make him aware that the new beginning is a cosmic gift after a fate that he had created has ended. In order to make a real new beginning, he needs to attain clarity about the cosmic law of fate. See my video on the law of fate. The cosmic gift that enables the person to make a new beginning may have come as an inheritance, a love relationship, a child, or help of any kind. Such gifts are expressions of the cosmos' nature's generosity and increasing everything that is in harmony with it. One of the purposes of fate is to bring a person back to humility, which is a state of being in harmony with the cosmos. The gift makes him aware, makes him experience what it is like to be in that harmony, and thus participate in the concentration of blessings that come from the cosmos. This thing again. At this starting point, the person is uncertain how to relate to his gift. The lines of this hexagram offer him guidance in this respect. The first step is for him to recognize its cosmic nature. The second is to recognize its purpose. The gift he has received is meant to help him free his true self. And by the way, there's a footnote in the text version of this that describes why they renamed this hexagram from difficulty at the beginning to making a new beginning. It's because the word difficulty put a spell on the hexagram, implying that all beginnings were difficult when that's not the case. So they removed the word difficulty and renamed it making a new beginning. The gift, wants to be seen as giving him an opportunity to deepen his understanding of the dynamics of life, both in its visible and invisible aspects. The third step is to acknowledge his responsibility to the gift. This responsibility is to not allow the ego to appropriate the gift to its purposes, which would happen if it were used to develop a new self-image, such as that of the benefactor or the person of influence. Money gift. In the case of receiving the gift of a child, the danger lies in adopting a self-image that fulfills the role of the mother or the role of the father or head of the family, as defined by the collective ego. In the case of the gift of a love relationship, the self-image might be that of the man who dominates or the woman who yields, or vice versa. In all such new beginnings, the ego, which has not yet been routed, stands on the side offering flattering suggestions as to how the person can gain extra status or advantage through the gift. If he listens to these suggestions or entertains them in any way, the ego succeeds in remaining in control. As the servant of the collective ego, the individual ego is always a robber waiting to steal a person's cosmic gifts, to turn them to the collective ego's use in hopes of gaining its approval, rewards, and authorizations. When the person allows the ego to seize the gift, he creates a new fate. A person frequently receives this hexagram when, upon beginning his lessons with the sage that speaks to the I Ching, he unconsciously transports into his lessons his preconceived ideas, fears, expectations, and pre-structured ways of approaching situations. So long as these pre-existing elements are in place, nothing should be undertaken because they would unconsciously influence the situation. And what is true here is true for all the other new beginnings mentioned. This hexagram also refers to a person who, after he has experienced the burnout of a mistaken idea or belief, seeks to make a new beginning. This new beginning will not be possible, however, if he carries forward his anger, disappointment, and fear of further failure, as these would prevent him from having the openness needed to communicate with the sage or appoint helpers, as judgment recommends, referring to the helpers of the invisible world, of course. This hexagram also wants to make the beginning student of the I Ching aware that his situation in the moment is the material to which he is meant to apply what he learns. Moreover, no detail of his experience is too small or insignificant to be of use in this learning process. The sage does not teach theoretical lessons, but uses the situation at hand to teach him that each situation contains an inner truth that is not obvious to the eye. It then shows him the new way he is meant to relate to situations, as for example, by saying the inner no to what is incorrect and calling on the helpers of the invisible world to do what is necessary to correct it. It furthers one to persevere and not undertake anything. It also refers to the suspension of disbelief that is necessary before a new beginning can take place. The sage realizes that each person brings with him belief systems that are in conflict with what he learns. The sage never engages in argument or in efforts to prove anything, but allows the student to discover the truth for himself, often repetitively, until he knows it from within. Even this cannot take place, however, unless the student is willing to temporarily put aside his distrust and at least temporarily suspend his disbelief. This effort alone is required. Another mistake of the beginner is to transfer onto the sage all of his existing ideas of authority, including that of the highest authority, God. He needs to recognize that this is the activity of the ego, which, by putting the sage on a pedestal, needs to gain favors in exchange for obeisance. I cannot say that. I cannot say that word. Obeisance, whatever. The sage retreats whenever the ego is present and the messages the person receives become confused. Another obstruction to learning from the sage is the fear that the sage will require the person to change in a manner that he is unable or unwilling to do. In fact, the sage will present him only with truths he is capable of understanding and following, and which he can clearly see are in harmony with his true nature. Other fears connected with the beginning are expressed as doubt. What is it, the I Ching? Will it tell me the truth? Can I rely on it? Can I trust it? Will it protect me? Will it punish me if I make a mistake? What if it says something that is against my beliefs? Will I fall under its influence and not be able to get free? Will it mean I have to leave my family, friends, partner, or be abandoned by them? Will it ask me to change myself so that I'm no longer the person I now am? Is the sage evil? All of these doubts belong to the ego and its fears of being displaced by the true self once the person begins to discover his inner truth. The sage makes no demands that the person do anything, it only helps them to see his inner truth. The sage also does not ask the person to trust or have faith. It makes itself available to show the sincere student how his fears block him from realizing his inner truth, how they create in his psyche the demonic sphere of consciousness that attempts to rule his life. It shows him how, by taking away the mistaken beliefs he has adopted from the collective ego, he can learn the true way of the cosmos and free his true nature, which is in harmony with the whole. The beginner also needs to understand that the sage does not teach beliefs. Moreover, it discourages him from adopting any. A frequent mistake of the beginner is to look around for other belief systems to replace the ones he has discarded. This is because he has been falsely taught as a child that he needs a belief system because his inner truth is not trustworthy and because he is not capable of having his own connection with the cosmos. Accordingly, he may easily fall into the temptation to see the I Ching as teaching the same universal truths contained in all religions. He needs to realize that this is but one more ploy of the collective ego to remain in control through equating what he learns from the sage with conventional beliefs. In this way, it provides a platform for likening the sage with the enlightened human beings it recognizes. Another misunderstanding that occurs at the beginning comes from thinking in terms of changes rather than transformations. The E of the I Ching has been translated either as changes or transformation because the two have been used interchangeably in China. The sage makes us aware that harmony of the cosmos is not to be achieved through making superficial changes, such as changing one's mind, habits, or attitudes. True change is impossible so long as the person retains the false program introjected into his psyche during childhood. Transformations occur on the base level of consciousness when he deprograms the false phrases and images of this program. A true new beginning requires that he examine and rid himself with the help of the RTCM, the retrospective three-coin method, which, by the way, just very quickly, is after you ask for a hexagram, you get a line and whatever, you can ask the sage additional questions by tossing 3 coins. And for example, if 2 out of the 3 coins are heads, then that would indicate a yes to your clarifying question. And 3 heads would be an emphatic yes, and similarly, vice versa for the tails. With help of the RTCM, the false basic premises that underlie all belief systems he has accepted into his psyche, whether consciously or unconsciously. He needs to add nothing. And what is uncovered through this effort is his true self that is in harmony with the cosmos. This is the effort that leads to transformation by engaging the helpers of the invisible world. This is also the meaning indicated by Lao Tzu when he described freeing the true self as daily diminishing aspects of the ego. The particular helper associated with this hexagram is the one that helps us find the root phrases and images, spells, and projections stored in our psyche that discourage us from making a new beginning. The robber mentioned in line 2 is the collective ego that poses as a helper having the right solution. These solutions always propose handling the situation by external means and by taking outer action. Spells connected with this hexagram often have to do with phrases or images that present new beginnings as difficult. They are difficult only so long as a person does not recognize the existence of the sage and the helpers and does not ask for their help. Plunging ahead without a clear view of the inner truth of a situation certainly leads to difficulties. Among such phrases are, I would not know where to begin, as an excuse not to begin, and all beginnings are difficult. Such thinking incorrectly views developing oneself as contorting one's nature into a model form. The effort to liberate the true self under the sage's guidance does not burden the person with endless chores and false disciplines. It frees him from within through stages of growth. Each time a person rids himself of a spell, he frees helpers within himself, making the task easier and easier as he goes. Line 1, hesitate because there is a hindrance. It furthers to remain persevering. It furthers to appoint helpers. Oh, just really quick, let's go over the gene keys for this hexagram. The shadow, through the eyes of a child, is the overall theme, and chaos is the shadow. I guess the chaos of a new beginning, right, is the shadow state, what it kind of was just describing with I will not know where to begin, or all beginnings are difficult. That's the shadow view. And by the way, all throughout the gene keys, I believe that the shadow is really another term for describing the ego, the collective ego in a person and in society. And perhaps the gift is a way that we can utilize, something we can utilize to overcome the ego, perhaps. And the city is, in fact, the being in harmony with the cosmos, state of being in harmony with the cosmos, in which I would kind of modify the gene keys, perhaps to, not modify, but I would add that perhaps the city is not quite so difficult to reach as is implied by Richard Rudd in many of the gene keys. Because we have the sage and the helpers and all this. So innovation is the gift, and innocence is the city. So just keep those in mind. And the two repressive and reactive natures are anal for the repressive nature and disordered for the reactive nature. And the dilemma, or the victim, you're a victim of a chaotic mind. That's hexagram. Okay, back to the lines. Line 1, hesitate because there's a hindrance. It furthers to remain persevering. It furthers to appoint helpers. A person can receive this line when at the beginning of a situation he feels impelled to take action simply from the belief that taking no action is weak or bad. The word hesitate indicates that he lacks clarity. Therefore, it is unfavorable to take any outer action. The person needs to discover and eliminate the mistaken beliefs he holds about his true nature, which are the hindrances mentioned. They prevent his seeing with clarity that his true nature, which is composed of helpers, possesses everything he needs to live his life in harmony with nature. His true nature also connects him with all the helping aspects of the cosmos. His mistaken ideas and beliefs have put spells both on his true nature and on the cosmic helpers, blocking their harmonious functioning. Taking away these spells will free his feelings, from which true clarity comes. True clarity comes from the feelings. To identify the phrases of the spells, he needs the help of the sage and the helpers of the invisible world. He must persist in this effort by using the RTCM until he has been assured by the sage that he has correctly and adequately identified them. Spells connected with this line are contained in the phrase, for example, there is no one to help me but myself. This spell imprisons a person's personal helpers who is believing that everything needs to be accomplished by mental calculation, effort, and striving. Such a person carries the world on his shoulders. Or the belief that a person's animal nature is inferior to that, and that to become free of it, he needs to develop his spiritual nature. This idea divides a person's wholeness into parts that are considered antagonistic. A person's true nature is inextricably connected with his body, which is the vehicle for receiving chi energy, the life force from the cosmos. Disdain of the body blocks the nourishing and healing chi and thus creates susceptibility to illness. Such a person needs the help of the sage to free his animal nature from the spell/slander. The idea that all things have their origin in ideas. Wow, how popular is that? That's the entire basis of like Hermetic philosophy or Hermetic esoteric tradition right there, that we're living in the universal mind, which implies that everything originates in an idea, doesn't it? The cosmic consciousness originates things from its feelings. not from ideas. The person who holds this idea has put a spell slander on his feelings so that he looks to ideas for truth rather than to his feelings. He has done so by accepting the flattery that his two frontal lobes are the most important part of his brain. This belief has also created another spell on the rest of his brain, which has been dismissed as primitive. The spell has blocked many synapses and capabilities of the dismissed parts of the brain. This line may also indicate a person who wishes to act, just to end the ambiguity that accompanies not acting. Instead, the person needs to inwardly ask the sage to be guided. If he remains open, the answer will show itself. If he gives the sage the necessary space by dispersing his distrust. Dispersal of distrust is a conscious act of saying an inner no to phrases expressing doubt about the sage's existence and about its ability to respond and do what is needed. And let's compare that to line 1 of the Ray Beeching really quickly, which is synthesis. Difficulties can only be overcome when all the pertinent factors have been analyzed. The exaltation earth. The understanding that confusion is natural must always exist before clarity can be achieved. An innate knowing that order will emerge from confusion. Must it though? Is confusion really natural though? I don't think so. And the detriment, Mercury. The reliance on intellect at the expense of intuition can lead to unnecessary frustration. The ability to know that order will emerge and the drive to find this knowing elsewhere. All right, line 2, difficulties pile up, horse and wagon turn about. If the robber were not there, the wooer would come. The maiden is faithful, she does not pledge herself. 10 years, then she pledges herself. This line points out that difficulties pile up when a person interprets the words of the I Ching as verifying his mistaken ideas and beliefs. This happens because he takes its words as literal calls to act outwardly and as an excuse to use power to make things happen. He does not realize that the sage can connect with him only through the resonance of the specific words and phrases regarding his situation that come through his feelings. If his mind is operating without being connected to his heart, the messages of the sage cannot get through to him. The wagon is a metaphor for his feelings and the horse for the words. The message makes sense only when they are connected. Both are helpers that have come to help, but have been turned back. The robber is a metaphor for the collective ego, which has interjected its conventional beliefs in the person, between the person and what the sage is trying to say. The maiden is faithful refers to the sage and the helpers that, being true to themselves, cannot give their support under these circumstances. 10 years is a metaphor that says the sage will never come as long as the person holds to those beliefs. The maiden is faithful also refers to situations in which a person is tempted to make a deal to be faithful to another in exchange for advantages gained. Such deals are inconsistent with his true self. Further, they involve him in obligations that are embarrassing and prevent his true partner from approaching. Ain't that the truth? As this line makes clear, the person approaching with the deal does so with the intention of robbing him of something, his goods, his chi energy, his good name, his integrity, etc. Wow. See phrases that lead one to accept such deals are, you have to be willing to compromise to get along, right? There is no such thing as the right person for you. The right person help always comes too late. You can't count on anything in this life. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Sometimes you have to settle for less. It's the best deal I'll ever get. In my circumstances, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. How common are those phrases? How many times do you hear those in everyday life? All the time, right? In my circumstance, all such phrases create spells that keep a person locked into positions into which he must compromise himself. Line 2, immaturity from the Ray Beeching. The unrestrained acceptance of guidance. What does that mean? The unrelenting energy for growth will eventually triumph. The energy and potential for individual mutation. Okay. Internal instability, which both accepts and rejects, and the detriment, you're honest. Internal instability, which both accepts and rejects authority simultaneously. Energy and potential that is conditioned by others leading to instability. Okay, line 3. Whoever hunts deer without the forester only loses his way in the forest. The forest in this line refers to demonized nature, but particularly to a person's nature. The hunting of deer is a metaphor for the hunting of demons that are populating the psyche due to spells. The forester represents the sage as the only one that can lead him to his hunt. The killing of these demons frees him to be his true self and ends his separation from nature and from the cosmic whole. The hunter can also be a person who asks questions of the sage from out of curiosity, just to be in the know about the way of the cosmos. Such a person takes for granted the human-centered view of the universe, that humans have a right to know everything and the freedom to do whatever they want with nature. This line warns him that treating nature as a set of mechanics invokes a fate, his losing his way in the forest, which is exactly what standard human design does. This line also describes the person who believes the universe operates as a set of mechanics and sees the I Ching as defining how the mechanics work. The sage cannot communicate with him because his beliefs put a spell on his ability to understand. Two other spells referred to by this line have to do with the idea that to be in the know is to be like God. It is based on this second spell that says he is unworthy unless he knows the nature of good and evil. So line 3 from the Ray Vichin, survival. The ability to recognize and distinguish between fertile and sterile in their various manifestations, the exaltation of Venus. In reproduction, the ability to choose the best mate, and innate knowing of what is sterile and what is fertile, where the mutation is specifically biological and dependent on collaboration with others. The detriment, Pluto, the perverse denial of evolutionary standards, and innate contrariness which refuses to mutate. Line 4, the cosmic chain. Horse and wagon part, return to the way. To go brings good fortune. Everything acts to further. The horse and wagon represent things that are meant to cooperate to achieve progress, as in the unity between thoughts and feelings, mind and heart. Here, the things meant to cooperate have been separated by spells and the wrong conclusions mentioned in the previous lines. Return to the way counsels the person to rid himself of these impediments to his progress. A person makes true progress by ridding himself of the demons in his psyche. The collective ego, by contrast, would have him make progress by following the new path it proposes, leading him to a new fate. If he will only walk on the path of his inner truth, which has not been trod by anyone else, everything will act further. Line 4, charisma. Innate quality which attracts valued guidance. The exaltation, Neptune, psychic attunement that magnetizes nurturing, a psychic energy which attracts nourishment and ensures ordering. The detriment, Mars. Mars and detriment, where the demands of the ego lead to rejection, confused energy that needs nourishment but is generally rejected. Line 5, difficulties and blessing. A little perseverance brings good fortune. Great perseverance brings misfortune. Here, the difficulties encountered refer to the retreat of the sage that occurs when the ego takes over a person's work on developing himself. The ego hopes through ambitious and pious work to be recognized by the sage as spiritual. The meaning of a little perseverance is to approach liberating the true self with modesty. This means not to forget to live one's life joyfully. The ego, in its striving, would drive the person to ascetic extremes and deprivations. This is the meaning of great perseverance brings misfortune. The problem with the idea of being spiritual is that it contains all the self-flattery that maintains the ego as leader of the personality. It further divides a person's true nature into a higher and lower self, splitting his wholeness and placing spells on what is believed to be his lower or animal nature. Accepting this idea creates a fate, which is usually that of an illness. This line can also indicate a person whose progress is blocked due to mistaken beliefs about the purpose of human life. It can refer to human-centered beliefs such as, I have to do it all. Humans are the representatives of heaven on earth. How many times do you hear that? Humans are responsible for making everything work and for creating order in the world. It's not true. Not true. Such difficulties and blessing can be erased if he asks the sage to help him rid himself of these mistaken beliefs. This will engage the helper of transformation to remove the blocks created by these phrases in his inner program. Line 5, victimization. When actions designed to overcome confusion alienate others, the courage to stand by one's convictions, the unique individual energy of individuality to withstand confusion. The detriment, the earth and detriment, where victimization leads to appeasement and suffering, confused energy which is dominated by the ordering power of others. Line 6, horse and wagon part, bloody tears flow. Horse and wagon part refers to the doubt a person has that he will ever reach his goal, whether that be to unite with another, to find a job that really suits him, or the freeing of his true self. Doubt coming from the ego is taken over his psyche, with the result being the bitter or bloody tears mentioned. The blood refers to the consequent loss of the will to go on. The underlying reason for not having attained his goal is that the ego was busy on the side, seeking to fulfill certain self-image. For this reason, the help needed from the invisible world was not available. This help could become available if he would rid himself of the ego's ambition to fulfill the self-image. This line frequently refers to the goal of fulfilling the self-image of the superior man, referred to in the Confucian versions of the I Ching, or the spiritual person. The line can also refer to the fate a person is experiencing due to having accepted mistaken ideas and beliefs, such as life has a beginning and an end. This fills him with the hopelessness that produces the bitter tears mentioned. Such a view prevents him from recognizing that life is a continuum from one dimension to another and separates him from the cosmic whole. To reunite with the cosmos, he needs to rid himself of this incorrect idea. And finally, line 6 from the Ray V Ching, surrender. The ultimate maturity to recognize when struggle is futile. The sun and the exaltation. As its light sustains, so life goes on. The innate acceptance that ordering is a process, not a problem. The detriment, Pluto. As darkness overwhelms, life can seem worthless, leading to depression and the sense of hopelessness. The overwhelming power of confused energy can lead to depression. All right, so that was Making a New Beginning. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.